NHS hearing aids are free. Private hearing aids can cost £1,500 to £6,000. The expensive mistake is treating that as a device comparison. Free hearing aid on one side, expensive hearing aid on the other. At Alto, we see people make the wrong decision in both directions. Some pay privately for the model of hearing aid and don't ask enough about the support around it. Others avoid private care because they think that their hearing loss is too straightforward, when what they actually need is more time, more choice, or better follow-up. I'm Bostock, founder of Alto Hearing. I'm an audiologist by background, and at Alto we help people work through this decision all the time, often for themselves and quite often for a parent. By the end of this video, you'll know when the NHS makes sense, when private care is worth looking at, and what to check before anyone books an appointment or signs a quote. So, I prefer a different question. What are you actually paying for? A hearing aid can be excellent on paper and still feel wrong if it's fitted in a rush, set too sharp, or never adjusted after you've worn it in real life. Before comparing NHS and private, start with three things. What problem are we trying to fix? How much can you spend without resenting the hearing aids? And how much help will you need once they're in your ears? At Alto, we hear the same situations again and again. Someone says, "Oh, I can hear people talking, I just can't make out the words." Someone says, "My hearing aids are fine at home, but useless when we go out." A son or a daughter says, "Oh, Dad says he hears fine, but the TV is getting louder and louder every month." Those all sound like hearing aid questions, but they're really different buyer situations. So where does the NHS make sense? Well, the clearest reason is obviously cost. NHS hearing aids are normally provided as a long-term loan, so repairs, batteries and aftercare are always included, and modern NHS hearing aids are much, much better than the old beige whistling things that many people still picture. If money is tight, if you can work with the waiting time, and if you're not too concerned about having the smallest or the most feature-heavy hearing aid, well, the NHS is hard to argue with. That's especially true if someone wants a lower pressure first step. Try them, wear them, see what improves, see what still annoys you. And then if you later look privately, you'll be much clearer about what you actually need. There's one other NHS situation that I wouldn't skip over, and that's if the hearing loss looks medically involved, very complex, or possibly around cochlear implant territory, then I definitely want the right NHS or hospital pathway involved before anyone starts comparing private quotes. The NHS has limits though, of course. The limits are usually around appointment time, choice, follow-up and continuity. You might not get the same range of styles, rechargeable options, Bluetooth accessories or background noise technology that you might see privately. And I say that with respect for NHS clinicians. I've been one myself. They're working in a system that has to see a lot of people with public money. Now, private care gives you more room to move, but private hearing care can mean a few very different things. It might mean buying online, a home visit, a high street chain, or an independent clinic. None of those is automatically right or wrong. The question is whether that route gives you enough time, enough care, and enough help after the hearing aids are fitted. So ask what the extra money buys. If the whole conversation is around the model of hearing aid, be very careful. A more expensive device doesn't rescue a rushed fitting. What I'd want to see privately is time. Time to understand where you struggle, time to test properly, time to explain results without burying you in graphs, time to fit the hearing aids carefully, real ear measurement where it's appropriate, and then time to adjust them once you've tried them at home with the family, in the car, in a cafe or in a restaurant where you already know that you struggle. That's where hearing aids get found out, and it's where people get put off. People will often say, "Oh, I tried hearing aids and they didn't work." Well, sometimes that means they were fitted, I had one quick adjustment and then I felt awkward going back and eventually they went in the drawer. Sometimes the hearing aid wasn't the main problem, the person was left to just work it out on their own too early. And then there's the family side. A lot of sons and daughters look this up because they're trying to help a parent without starting a row. The parent says, "Well, I don't need hearing aids, people just mumble." And now we hear that one a lot. Underneath it though, there's often embarrassment. Nobody wants to be feeling old. Nobody wants to be managed. Nobody wants to feel like they're being pushed into something. So for one person, the NHS feels easier because there's less financial pressure. And for another, private will feel easier because there's more time to ask questions and the appointment doesn't feel as rushed. The emotional bit still matters because hearing aids only help if the person actually wears them. Before anyone chooses, I'd use these 3 checks. First, where do you need the hearing aids to work? Don't say everywhere, that's too vague. Pick the real place. Sunday lunch, restaurants, work meetings, church, the television, grandchildren, your partner speaking from another room, which people tend to use as a hearing test far more often than they probably should. Now, if you mainly need help in quiet, you may not need the most advanced private hearing aid. If you're avoiding noisy places, the technology choice, the fitting detail, and follow-up become much more important. Second, what would make you stop wearing them? Comfort? Your own voice sounding maybe a bit strange? Background noise? Fiddly batteries? Maybe you might feel self-conscious, or even spending more than you're comfortable with. People usually stop wearing hearing aids because a few annoying things build up and then nobody sorts them out early enough. Find the likely sticking point before anybody buys anything. Third, what happens after the fitting? So this is the question I care about the most, because who adjusts them? How is the fitting checked? Will they verify the fitting, for example, with real ear measurement where appropriate? What happens if your own voice sounds wrong, or background noise is too much, or you can't get on with them? A good provider should be able to explain that clearly. If the answer is vague, then I'd be cautious. I'd also be cautious about private care in a few specific situations. So if someone is financially stretched, obviously don't force a private purchase. If the hearing test raises a red flag, then pause and get the right referral. If the person is only there because the family has pushed them into it, slow down. You can buy excellent hearing aids, but you can't buy someone's willingness to wear them. And if someone expects private hearing aids to restore perfect hearing, hearing aids aren't replacement ears. They're tools. They're good tools when they're fitted well, but still they're tools. The simple version is this. I'd look seriously at the NHS if cost is the main pressure, or if someone wants a sensible first step. I'd look seriously at the private care if the person wants more time, more choice, faster access, the same clinician, a more detailed fitting, and a follow-up process. Straightforward hearing loss can sit in either route. A person may still want speed, choice, continuity, or more support. Doesn't matter about the hearing loss. So if this is for a parent, I'd start with what they miss, what would annoy them, and what they'd actually wear. That conversation usually goes better than, Dad, you need hearing aids. So before you speak to anybody, write down 3 things. Where you most want to hear better, what would make you stop wearing the hearing aids, and what can you spend without resenting them? If you want help working that through, you can book an appointment with Alto using the link below. And if you choose somewhere else, ask the same thing. Who fits them, who adjusts them, and what happens if they don't feel right after a couple of weeks? Don't start with the hearing aid, start with the person who has to live with it.